Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for an episode of Clean Water Casting. It's a podcast sponsored by FloridaRightToCleanWater.org, the organization behind efforts to amend our state constitution, establishing a fundamental right to clean and healthy waters for all Floridians. I'm Joseph Benazia, Communications Director. In this series, we delve into water quality issues throughout Florida, speaking with experts who know these issues best and who can help us understand these issues and what we need to do to return our waters to health. Our guest today is Jim Gross. Jim is Executive Director of Florida Defenders of the Environment. He has strong scientific background in geology, hydrogeology, water supply planning, and water management resource. He also teaches at Santa Fe College. Jim, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
My pleasure.
So, Jim, what are the water quality issues in Florida that most concern you and Florida Defenders of the Environment? Help us understand how they started, why they persist, and how they impact both the people and wildlife of Florida.
Well, there are a number of different things that are getting into our freshwater supplies that aren't good. One of the principal ones we don't often think about are nutrients, things like nitrates and other nutrients that cause green algae blooms to occur in our fresh water. Now, that doesn't per se damage our groundwater supplies, but it certainly does a lot of damage to our surface water features like lakes and rivers and that sort of thing. So that's a real problem. I've been participating in some of what are called basin management and action plan meetings that the state has been holding, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. What I've noticed is, and I've attended just recently, that including one for the Upper Ocklawaha River basin, that we're not only not meeting the goals for these basin plans, things are actually getting worse, and so we're going in the wrong direction, and that's really something that people should be aware of, and it's really not an acceptable situation. I mean, we committed to this decades ago, and instead of getting better, it's getting worse. Now, there are a variety of reasons for that. Sure, it costs money. That's true, to do these sorts of things, but it's going to the cost to us in terms of human health will be far worse if we don't address it. So we need to address these issues as soon as possible.
Can you give us some examples of what those costs in human health are exactly? Are we talking short-term illness, long-term illness?
Well, things like nitrate, for example, while not terribly harmful to adults and young children, can be extremely dangerous to infants. So that's a real problem. But there's a variety of other issues in terms of water quality. Let me give you an example. And this is on the Ocklawaha River, behind the dam, the Kirkpatrick Dam. And there is a very serious problem with the bioaccumulation of mercury in that water body. What happens is mercury is a trace element that happens to be sort of in certain concentrations in coal and other types of organic fossil fuels, but particularly in coal. And when we burn coal and combust it, the waste products go up into the atmosphere, right? Including the mercury. That mercury drifts in the winds and it gets into our water bodies, our lakes, our rivers. It has been getting into the Ocklawaha River upstream of the dam. Now, if it was just at low concentrations, it wouldn't be a big problem. But in the impoundment behind the dam, what's going on is what's called bioaccumulation. So this mercury gets in there, and then little tiny creatures eat it, and then bigger creatures eat it, and bigger and bigger. It gets, by the time it gets into the fish, which are at the top of the food chain, pretty much like things like, largemouth bass, we're talking about concentrations that are harmful to human health. And the state has issued warnings about the frequency of eating largemouth bass caught behind the dam, upstream of the dam, a number of times. Well, it's like maybe once a month for like adults, but for children and women of childbearing ages, the amount they can eat is zero. They should never eat that stuff. It's toxic. It's far too toxic. And so this is a water quality problem that we need to be addressing. We've been ignoring it for decades now. It's not a recent phenomenon. We've known about this for quite a while.
I'm a former New Yorker, and your comments remind me of acid rain, which impacted northern Adirondack Mountains severely. To this day, hundreds of lakes are still dead. So there was a severe impact to the wildlife up there. So what you were speaking about, what are the impacts to wildlife in the Oklawaha and the surrounding area?
Well, some species of fish, we'll start with fish, were totally eliminated. Now, I'm not a fish biologist, but I can tell you for sure, striped bass is one species. There are others, sturgeon and whatever, that used to live in the Ocklawaha River. In fact, they're what's called anadromous fish, which is to say they are hatched in the freshwater streams on the run down towards the ocean. And in the early days, they're in the river, but as adults, they go out into the ocean and live most of their lives until it's time to come back up those streams and to breed and hatch eggs. So the striped bass, gone. They couldn't get up that river once the dam was there, and they're gone. Now, if we take the dam out, they'll come back. Now, what else? Well, manatees. Manatees are very sensitive to cold temperatures. So now this isn't a water quality issue, but this is still an issue related to how we impair our waters and the wildlife that depend on it. When it gets really cold, manatees need to get to warmer water. And there are these are called thermal refuges. Typically, they are Florida's springs. So we'll see congregations of them at Volusia Blue Springs and many other springs. There are 20 springs in the Ocklawaha River that have stopped flowing just because the dam impounds water level to high levels above the ground surface. So instead of spring water coming up, river water is going down into the ground, which is river water with all kinds of silt and organic material in it. So that's an issue. And but if we restore the river, we will get manatees will have access to these thermal refuge springs.
So the dam is a problem. How long has the dam been there? Why was it built? And specifically, what is the position of Florida's defenders regarding the dam these days?
Well, this is a long history. Very, very long time ago, when the Spanish still owned Florida, right?
Oh, we're going back a ways. Go ahead.
We're going to go way back. We started at the beginning. They realized the value of being able to not have to sail wooden ships around the southern tip of Florida because we're very dangerous waters due to coral reefs. A lot of boats sank when they hit these reefs, particularly sailing at night, and lost their treasure. Right, so that's kind of the ground zero where all this started. In the 1930s, the federal government was looking for opportunities to get people back to work during the Great Depression, right? And so they imagined this project called the Cross Florida Ship Canal, not barge canal, but ship canal. And they started working on it. And there was a little bit of funding, but it didn't last very long. And a little bit of work got done, but not much. Later on, in the 1960s, the idea was, okay, we don't need a ship canal, and the main reason it should not be a ship canal is that it would have to be very deep, so deep that it would impair the fresh water in the Florida's aquifers with saline water, seawater, and both the state geologist of Florida and one of the geologists with the U.S. Geological Survey realized this, and so the plan was changed to make it a barge canal, but not as deep. And that plan got launched in 1969. Florida Defenders of the Environment was formed that same year because we realized how bad the dam would be for this river and for the wildlife and for the environment in general. And we've been at it ever since. Now this year we were kind of optimistic that there might be some indication that state government was finally getting its act together to restore a free-flowing Ocklawaha River with all the advantages, including water quality, clean water that would bring about. And there was a line item in the budget for a study, should call it a restudy, because it had already been studied before, but still this was a good thing. It was to update the information that had previously available about the costs and impacts of finally restoring a free-flowing Ocklawaha River. Unfortunately, right at the last moment, it got vetoed by the governor. And that was very, very, very disappointing for a lot of people. That we thought we were finally on our way. Now, we're working with our partners on this, trying to turn things around. We are aware that there's a lot of sympathy about this in the legislature, in the Florida legislature, and it's not just one party or the other. Both the Democrats and the Republicans seem to be united on the idea that this dam has to go. So it's got support there. And we have become aware, I'll tell you why we have, because there's a partner in this coalition to restore the Ocklawaha River, or it's called Free the Rivers, or reunite them right now is what it's called. And that partnership that is led up by a very intelligent and prudent lady named Margaret Spontak to hire a lobbyist to talk to the legislators and to talk to staff, and that's how we found out about this is an action that is accepted by both elected officials in both parties, as well as it is by staff at Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So the time has come. We just need the funding to get it to go.
Okay. So, I mean, a lot of that sounds very optimistic. It has taken a long, long time to get to this point.
Well said.
Yeah. The state is sitting on lots and lots of money right now. I think it's got $15 billion surplus money. But so far, basically, you have been pursuing, the legislative process in order to get this done.
Just in broad terms, seeking support for finally doing this. Yeah. Now, there have been surveys that have been done, and the general public has responded to these surveys. And for, there were a couple of different ones that were done. One was done by the Water Management District, St. John's River Water Management District, and it showed an overwhelming public support for finally freeing a free-flowing Ocklawaha River. And so we know the public supports it. There is a small contingent of people who like the dam there. They like it the way it is, and I understand that. I've talked to some of them. One of the answers I got was they just like to be able to pull the throttle back and go, as fast as their boat will go across the lake. And of course, you got to be careful where you do that, because parts of the impoundment still have trees sticking out of the water from when the dam was built years and years ago. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a small contingent, typically of bass fishermen who like it the way it is. But the thing is, you know how many places you can fish for largemouth bass in Florida? It's countless. We don't need to have that dam there to have just dozens and dozens of places to go within this similar area of Florida for fishing for largemouth bass.
I've spoken to folks who said that the fishing opportunities would actually increase. They would improve were the dam to be removed.
It would. The striped bass and many other species of fish, sturgeon and others, would be able to come back into the river and thrive. And you're right. So in that sense, we could arguably say the fishing will get better.
Super. So, Jim, you know that there is an effort in the state to amend our state constitution to give all Floridians a fundamental right to clean and healthy waters, such as other states currently have, Pennsylvania, New York, and Montana. And there are 20 other states throughout the nation who are now pursuing similar amendments. You are a supporter of our amendment. Can you tell us a little bit about why that is and how you might see it being applied to the Ocklawaha?
Well, in this country, we were founded on the concept that, freedom of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? I'll learn that in history in elementary school and maybe relearn it again in high school. What could be more fundamentally relevant and important than clean water to the health of our people? This is like a human right. It should be a human right to clean water, and I'm fully supportive of making this a legislative priority. If it has to be a constitutional one, so be it. That's even better.
Mm-hmm. Well, your words certainly resonate, especially just a few days after we celebrated, the 4th of July. Yes, what the heck is more American than a fundamental right to clean water? For our listeners who might not know, with this legal tool, we would be able to hold our state agencies accountable when through their actions or their inaction, they permit harm to our aquatic water systems or the degradation of the aquatic water systems. And in those cases, they have to have a compelling state interest, something somehow more important than clean and healthy waters if they're going to harm our waters. The amendment says that if they do have that interest, still they must minimize harm as much as possible, only as much as needed to meet that interest, and no more. If not, well, then with this fundamental right, we've got to stand in to hold them accountable. So, Jim, I love the way you articulated that. Like I said, it's resonated, gave me a little bit of goosebumps, to be quite honest. So, any last comments or words that you would like to tell our listeners?
I think we're going in the right direction, even if we're moving slowly at times. I think we're gonna see this amendment pass. I think we've seen lots. These kinds of amendments or legislature as well are well received by the public in Florida and elsewhere throughout the country. So.
Super. Thank you very much, Jim. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. To our listeners, thank you for listening in. I hope you will join us next week for another episode of Clean Water Casting with FloridaRightToCleanWater.org, and you can go to our website in order to learn more information. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jim. Everybody have a great day.
All right. Thanks.